thank you for your work. We all appreciate it as much as we're trying to feed our children and ourselves organic. I really just have a comment, kind of a question too. I know that when Obama was running for president, he said that he would mandate the labeling of foods that were GMO. And then when he became president in his very first term, he appointed a Monsanto employee to the FDA. So I guess that's my statement. My question is, do you really think that he doesn't know that they're bad for us?
I don't think that he knows.
Even though he eats all organic and they have an organic garden?
Well, I mean, you can be an advocate for organic food and still, because listen, there are eminent scientists that are arguing that genetic engineering is so natural that it should be included in organic. They're trying to get it included in the organic standards. So the scientists, there are organic, in fact, one of the main scientist that has been arguing this way wrote a book published by, I believe, Oxford University Press or Cambridge. I think it's Oxford University Press. Tomorrow's Table. Her husband she's a professor at the University of California, Davis, Pamela Ronald. Her husband runs the organic gardening project, the organic farming project at UC Davis. And he co-wrote the book with her, and they argue that Tomorrow's Table should include genetic engineering. They are proponents of organic agriculture, but they're also major proponents of genetic engineering, based on the claim that it's essentially essentially natural, and that the foods it produces are at least as safe as conventional foods. Now that's had a great influence. So with people like that, you know, if you're president and you're getting pressure, if there's scientists like that saying it, you're not a biologist, you tend to go with them and think, okay, you know, I can be in favor of organic and in favor of genetic engineering. That's why by the way, my book shows where several statements of Pamela Ronald's that just are not in line with reason and or the facts, and yet she's highly influential. We need to get the disinformation shown up for what it is. There have been advisors for the State Department, for our government, that have been, you know, they tend to be proponents of genetic engineering, and they give the party line. And they spew it as if it's sound science. So, no, I don't think Obama understands even that the food safety laws have been violated. Not every lawyer knows the food safety laws. He was a constitutional lawyer when he was at Chicago. I didn't know all the food safety laws till I started doing the research when I became concerned.
Instead of mandating GMO labeling like he said, he appointed a Monsanto employee to the FDA. So he was on the side of the people when he was, you know, feeding us the lines so that people would vote for him. But then when he was elected, he appointed a Monsanto employee. It just seems a little crooked to me.
Oh, well, it's not good. I mean, we know that presidents come under the influence of the industry. But if you've got eminent scientists telling you that there's nothing to worry about, it makes it easier for you. You can rationalize it. If I still am kind of, what's the old song, cockeyed optimist. I believe that Barack and Michelle Obama, and I believe that Bill and Melinda Gates want to do good for the world. I think that they sincerely think they're doing good for the world and that GMOs will. But they're allowed to believe that because of all the disinformation that's been dispensed by scientists. Listen, people have a right to believe that the National Academy of Science is telling them the truth, don't they? And the UK Royal Society, and that eminent scientists with prestigious medals and awards are not lying to them or are not spin doctoring. And so if the economically and politically advantageous policy is also, you think, scientifically correct, then it's much easier for you to think that. If either of them, or Bill Clinton too, were to read my book, I think that their minds would be changed. I think that they would be. And then I expect that they would act accordingly. But that's because I remain optimistic in the ultimate good of human nature. And I have to keep believing that. Or I wouldn't have written the book if I didn't think it would have an effect. Yes?
Sir, I want to thank you for providing us with a fairly systematic, methodological approach to giving us more clarity what some of the issues are. And I would be the first one in line to purchase your book, because I really appreciate what you have done today. Now, I go to
Thank you,
medical...
and I'll be here to sign them, I guess, afterwards.
Oh,
or whatever,
yes,
if any of
you
you want a
better be.
signed copy.
I find myself in medical conventions, and it is astounding to see the representation that is present there that represents the bioengineering viewpoint. They're covering their bases very, very well and providing misinformation in different arenas. Now, here's my question. What do you think we can do? There is an organization called Center for Science in the Public Interest. They have the largest food-oriented, scientifically solid magazine in the world. The editor, the chief there is Michael Jacobson, MIT graduate. Is there a way that we could maybe tie into these kind of consumer advocate organizations to perhaps lift the awareness in the community?
Well, there is, and the organization you mentioned, unfortunately, up at least as my most recent knowledge is, has still been, what can I say? They're getting better on GMOs, but I know back in the late 90s, early 2000, that organization was actually one of the organizations that was helping promote genetic engineering, by and large. Although they've been critical of some aspects of FDA policy, by and large the message that one would get is that there's no major food safety concern. I don't know the extent to which that might have changed recently. I would love to have a dialogue with them. I'd love to have them read the book and sit down with Michael Jacobson, because again, that organization has done a lot of very good things, and they brought consumer awareness up in many levels, and they've made many significant changes. I just think, again, it's a case in which they have been listening to scientists in whom they had a right to respect the opinion, and they have been misled. It's very easy to mislead people in this, because what's going on in genetic engineering, what's really happening, most people don't know about, and they can spin it and contort the facts, and they've done it. My book goes into how facts have been suppressed. Just basic facts of biology have actually been misrepresented even. And it's astounding. So it's hard to completely fault anybody who's not an expert, because there has been such disinformation out there. As I said, even the Royal Commission of New Zealand, a blue ribbon panel, their report on GMOs, on the health risks of it, it contains several significant misrepresentations. Where did they get that? They got it from people that they thought were telling them the truth, but we're not. So it's really a very sorry situation where things are that jumbled that it's very difficult to sort out fact from fiction. It really is amazing. And if you do read the book, you'll see that. It's a very, as Jane Goodall said, not only did she say it's one of the most important books of the last 50 years, she has stated it's one of the most chilling books she's ever read. It's chilling to see how science has been subverted, how the media, again, has engaged in the kind of self-censorship that one could have expected from Pravda in Stalinist Soviet Union, but not in the United States of America, which is supposed to be a free and open society with a free press to make sure that government fraud is exposed, not to be complicit in allowing government fraud to continue. So again, we need to stand up. People have to wake up. It's not just we need to get GMOs off the market. We need a major reform, because we have to understand how this all was allowed to happen. And that means major reforms are needed in science and in government, the way the FDA is run, and the media. So we're talking about, it's going to help start a major transformation of the way our society is going. And so when the facts about genetically engineered foods and the way in which this whole venture has been able to advance and gain traction is fully understood, it's going to be a wake-up call, and many people are going to demand thoroughgoing change. It's going to be exciting to see the kinds of transitions that occur. But I think that there will be major ones. Yes.
Aren't there laws presently in the Senate or the Congress that is requiring labeling on food products of the United States so the United States citizens can see GMO labeling in all products that are in grocery stores. Is there anything in legislature in any state that will pass a law like they tried to do in California until Monsanto came in and bought out enough advertising that defeated that labeling for California? Is there anything any state can pass marijuana laws?
I'm going to come close to you because my hearing's not good and some I'm not picking you up enough. I want to make sure I hear what you're
Okay. If marijuana was passed in states across the union and they passed it in individual states, why is it so hard to get GMO labeling on our food products in our grocery stores so the citizens of the United States can eat healthier?
It's been hard to get those ballot initiatives passed because of all of the money that the biotech industry and its supporters in the food industry have been pumping in to put out, deceptive ads. And it would have won in California, by the way. My book discusses this. I mentioned the American Association for the Advancement of Science has behaved very badly. One of the worst things they did occurred during the height of the campaign in California. The board of directors of the American Association for the Advancement of Science came out with a statement basically to advance genetic engineering, to state that labeling not only was not necessary, but would confuse people and would be wrong. And there were several misstatements of fact in that. I discuss it in my book. We know that the margin of victory in California was razor thin. I think it's almost sure that that statement from the AAAS alone swayed enough voters. In fact, we know initially a large majority of Californians who were polled said they were going to vote yes. And then when the vote came, enough of them had changed their minds. And I have a feeling that just that statement, that very misleading statement from the AAAS alone swayed enough voters in California to make a difference. And that was in addition to all of the television ads. And so again, because I'll bet a lot of very intelligent scientists read that and thought, oh, well, I want to be on the side of science. So, by the way, I sent an email to the board, and I called up and spoke to a staff member and told them there were mistakes, they had to retract it, and I sent it. She said, send it to me. I sent it to her. And then she confirmed that she passed it on to the board, and then I sent the chairman of the board an email directly to her university email address, never heard back from any of them. Certainly they never acknowledged they were wrong, because that's not what they want. They're not into playing by the rules of science, where if you make a mistake, you acknowledge it. They were into convincing people to vote no, and they won. I mean, they did it. So we're up against that kind of thing. But again, as I state, the labeling campaigns, my book discusses in its last chapter, these labeling campaigns have done a great service in educating Americans as to what that there are GMOs, that they permeated the food supply for years, that they and their family have been consuming them unknowingly. So it's done a major service. But my feeling is, and this is just mine, and many activists who've been fighting for labeling for a long time have become convinced, they told me, even before my book came out, that they want to now focus on banning them. But if a food is on, I have never been focused just on labeling, even though it could be certainly better to have labeling than not. If foods are on the market illegally and you put labels on them, or if I, as a lawyer who knows what I know, were just fight for labeling, that tacitly acknowledges they're on the market legally. Because if a food is on the market illegally, you don't label it, you take it off the market. Labels are to give extra information to foods that are legally on the market, okay? So I do not want to in any way give the impression that these foods are somehow on the market legally. They're not. They are on the market in stark violation of the Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act. And people have to know that. And so it's my role to at least get that information out, because I'm about the only one who's saying that. So that's why I need to stick to that message. And I think that actually would be easier to get a ban than to get labeling in the different states. I think we got to get the knowledge out, but that's just me. And if you want to be fighting for labeling, keep doing it. You're doing good things. You're bringing up awareness. So I think anybody should just do whatever you want. Whatever you feel is the most effective way for you to be involved, do it. Anyway, I know my efforts have to just be to continue to bring out the facts, to get people to read the book, to give talks like this, to hope that influential people will hear it, either here in the audience live or who are going to watch it on live stream or on video later, that enough people of influence will be reading the book and using their influence to get other people of influence to read it, and eventually we'll have enough people who actually have clout and power to do something about this, and I think the change can be very dramatic. I think we can reach a critical mass of people who know enough about the facts that we can topple this very quickly. That's just me. If you could, many people might disagree with me on that, and that's fine. The main thing is we've got to get the facts out there. The knowledge has to be out there. Okay. So I think it's time to wrap it up. I appreciate your attention, your questions, and just learn the facts, protect your family and your loved ones, and start making ripples. You all have networks. Start getting the word out even more strongly about the unacceptable risks of GMOs and the need to take them off the market as soon as possible.